Palestinian government.
The recent public disagreement between U.S. President Barack Obama and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about just how to move the peace process forward may have left American Jews in a bit of a conundrum. IBA's Eli Wagalanter asked Rabbi Rachel Sabath Beit-Halachmi of the Shalom Hartman Institute if the American Jewish community is caught between affinity towards Israel and a political hard place.
One of the things that I love about this particular moment is it actually surfaces an age-old tension of the Jewish people anywhere in the world. Jewish people in the communities of world Jewry, and even more so since the creation of the State of Israel, have been in a situation of what Louis Brandeis called dual loyalty, a tension around dual loyalty. For American Jews, by and large, that relationship, that tension has been worked out very, very positively. What we see happening now is a surfacing of that same issue, the question of where does your primary loyalty reside? Where's your primary loyalty? That's the question being posed to the Jewish people in the United States of America today. What I think is fascinating in terms of that situation between Obama and President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu is that it is coming on the back of another very, very deep debate in the American Jewish community in terms of the political discourse, usually said succinctly to be a choice between AIPAC and J Street. One of the things that we've been doing here at the Hartman Institute is we've been working very, very hard to try to both shift the discourse and lift it to not a conversation about either or. It's not a choice between political groups or political positions that American Jews need to make. They need to make a decision about what their values are. What are your values? Are your values about committing yourself to a country in the Middle East that is also your homeland, that should be a country that represents your Jewish values? And are you willing to do so even in disagreement with its government, and all the more so in disagreement with your own government? So that's really the dilemma.
What if our values are different? The values we have here based on the neighborhood that we live in the Middle East is so different than the neighborhood of North America, and therefore the values are going to be different.
We're certainly living in two very different realities, certainly in two very different neighborhoods. And I wasn't saying that Israeli Jewry and North American Jewry should see things the same. I'm talking about both communities embracing shared values and being very concerned about, ultimately, about the destiny of the Jewish people and about that relationship. So I would say less important, actually, is exactly the date on which we get to peace. I would say more important is how we get there, and are we having a values discussion along the way. One of the things that's come up in these arguments is really, charges of betrayal of anybody who's critical of Israel or the Israeli government, and accusations that those who were critical of the process and methodology of the Israeli government are somehow betraying their people. And I would say the opposite, what they're actually doing in most cases is, in love of Israel and in love of Judaism, ensuring that actually as a Jewish people we're having a values conversation, and that Jewish values, a wider set of Jewish values, in fact inform this conversation and hopefully this process. So when someone says to someone who's critical of Israel, where are your Jewish instincts of self-protection, of wanting to protect the Jewish people, I think there's also a question that could be asked, where are your Jewish instincts for peace? Because what happened in that last conversation, in the situation we're in now, is, I think, and one of the most tragic things, in my view, is that there's a loss of hope about the future. Once the Jewish people lose hope and feel stuck in the situation, I would say that's an abandonment of one of our highest values. And that's what I think happened in that last exchange. Obama's saying, yes, we can, yes, we have hope, let's move forward. And I think Netanyahu's message was one that isn't a message of hope at the moment.
Can we also say that it's not a question of hope and not hope? It's a question of hope and reality?
I'm certainly living the reality. I have a husband who serves in the military. I have a nephew in the military. I have a son in the military. I go through checkpoints every day. I'm very, very aware of the reality in which we live. And kal v'chomer, all the more so, I would say, we have to have hope. Our leaders need to give us hope, and certainly need to give us hope that we will not be in the same situation that we're in today 10 and 15 years from now, which is what my concern is, that's what that message was. But there's no hope for change. There has to be hope for change, perhaps at a slower pace, perhaps with slightly different lines drawn, perhaps with different settlements made, different agreements about. All of those things, I think, are open in the conversation, but the conversation has to be based on hope.
Well, it's no secret that former Mossad chief Meir Dagan landed